Iconic jazz singer Ella Fitzgerald was one of the most significant African-American songstresses of her time. And now the First Lady of Song is being remembered on the 20th anniversary of her death.
Give you my dove surprise. I'll be with you soon, my darling.
Lady Ella, Queen of Jazz, First Lady of Song. No matter what name she went by, there's no disputing it. Ella Fitzgerald was one of the most popular female jazz artists in the US for over 50 years. She was an unstoppable force in the music industry with 13 Grammy wins and sales of over 40 million albums. Born in 1917 in Newport News, Virginia, the American artist experienced a turbulent childhood that began with the separation of her parents, followed years later by the death of her mother, which eventually led to life on the streets. The turning point in her life came when she entered an amateur song contest at Harlem's Apollo Theatre, where she wowed audiences with her rendition of Hoagy Carmichael's Judy. Many critics say this was the beginning of her long career. After performing and recording with some of the top bands of the time, Ella moved on to start a solo career in 1942. But it wasn't until the 50s and 60s that she achieved major critical and commercial success. Noted for her pure sound, positive energy, and flawless diction, Ella was a master at improvising, particularly in her scat singing, a vocal improvisation that mimics an instrument. This in turn became her signature technique. Lady Ella was also famed for her collaborations with such greats as Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and the Ink Spots. A number of popular songs like Dream a Little Dream of Me, Cheek to Cheek, and Into Each Life Some Rain Must Fall were born from these partnerships. Ella once said, "Where there is love and inspiration, I don't think you can go wrong." After 2 decades since her passing in 1996, Ella Fitzgerald still continues to be a huge inspiration to musicians all around the world.
Blessed with a touching, joyous delivery and a wide range, she's arguably the finest jazz singer of all time. June 14th marks the 20th anniversary of her death. Randal Rosman from the Ella Fitzgerald Charity Foundation joins me now from Washington, D.C. to commemorate the superior interpreter of the Great American Songbook, Ella Fitzgerald. Hello and welcome. Tell us about what made Ella so great and inspired so many artists after her time.
Well, I was lucky enough to meet Ella Fitzgerald as a young child, and I got to meet her a few times before she passed away when I was younger. But it's really the case that if someone who's a millennial like me can really appreciate the richness and the varied melodies of her music, I believe really everyone can enjoy and appreciate the music that she produced during her lifetime. As it is for the charitable foundation and on her Facebook page, there are hundreds of comments every day in languages from all over the world. So thank God for Google Translate. It definitely helps us understand a lot of what people are saying to us about how they saw her or how she's inspired them. But it's even the case that Ira Gershwin said that he never knew how good his songs were until he heard Ella sing them.
Oh, wow. Well, that leads me to my next question, actually. Tell us about the legacy she's left behind and how she continues to inspire artists today and how she kind of led the way.
So the Ella Fitzgerald Charitable Foundation was started in 1993 by her. And it works currently with a lot of music schools and music departments everywhere from elementary schools all the way through university. We provide scholarships, primarily in vocal arts, but also in just jazz studies. During the summer, we provide quote-unquote camperships so that kids can go to music camps during the summer that otherwise might not be able to afford to go to them. And everyone from you could talk to people at the Smithsonian, to your average jazz artist who's playing on a street corner, and they've all heard of Ella Fitzgerald, and they all love her, whether it's because of her interpretation of the music or how much feeling she was able to evoke in her music. It really leaves a lasting impact. At least I feel it leaves a lasting impact when you hear her sing certain songs. And it's also the case that we'll be going to Indiana this July, I believe, to work with Michael Feinstein and his Songbook Academy, which teaches the students about Ella and about the Songbook, and we'll be there at least to teach people about Ella and her work with the Great American Songbook.
Right. Well, as you said, she had such a skilled and joyous delivery. In fact, possibly the only criticism she got during her lifetime is maybe sounding so full of life, even on the sad songs. But what was her life like?
Ella had a very difficult and a sad childhood. She was born in Newport News, Virginia, and she never knew her father. He ran off when she was very little. Thankfully, her mother, her name was Tempe, fell in love with a Portuguese gentleman, but being that Virginia was in the South back in those days, any interracial marriage was highly frowned upon. So her mother upped and moved them to Yonkers in New York, where Ella got a, well, half-sister from her mom and her new dad. But Ella really didn't have it easy. Her mom passed away when she was still on the younger side, and she moved in with her aunt. But Ella really never dwelled on it. She didn't like talking about her childhood. She would always brush off those questions. So in her memory, we tried not to dwell on it. But she got very lucky. She met and started working with the great jazz drummer Chick Webb after she was discovered. And her first hit, A Tasket, was written and produced by her and Van Alexander in order to cheer up Chick Webb when Chick was in the hospital one time. But Ella definitely got her big break when she was introduced or discovered by Norman Granz, the great jazz producer, who got her onto his label Verve. And from there, as you know, her career really skyrocketed.
Right. Well, Randal Rosman, thank you for joining us from Washington, D.C.